Hello everybody. In this video, I want to create a website, a web application that will ask for sources from a REST API. We know that in order to get from those REST API, we need to use the HTTP verbs. Those usually are get, post, delete, patch, right? We are not going to do a CRUD application, but we are only going to be using the REST API in order to request data from our endpoint, and those are going to be really simple to use. Uh, Probably we're going to be using, well, actually, we're going to use the Giphy developer network. That means that we're going to create a website, a web application that will look for GIFs, and we can then see the details of that particular GIF. So we're going to be using Bit for the development environment, Vue 3, of course, Vue Router, in order to have the main website, and some composition APIs over here and there, and use Axios for the calls for you do those HTTP requests. So let's actually get started. As you can see, I will start my project with npm init bit app. Yeah, it's requesting you to save it. You say yes. I didn't put the name here, so it's asking for the name. Let's call this GIF Finder. It's going to be a Vue application. Okay, cool. I can open this one right here, and let me put this one on the left right now. Perfect. So the first thing that we need to do is going to vector JS config. And we're going to create a new file called JSConfig, and we're going to put this section right there. Cool. Next thing that we're going to be using, we're going to use the Bit plugin component. For that, I believe we need to open first my terminal, and let me install my dependencies. npm install. npmi is a shorthand from npm installation. It's going to install my dependencies, create my node modules right there. Let's use the byte plugins. And in the config, yes, we need to import it. Let's import this one right here, and we will call it after Vue. So Vue, comma, and this one. Let me save it. Perfect. That will allow us to use the component folder pretty much to request everything we need. Now we're going to install Tailwind CSS. So we use this part. Then we create the configuration file that's going to be created for us. We're going to change this in the Tailwind configuration, the first section. There you go. And we're going to create the index CSS inside the source directory. Index.css. Perfect. And we need to import that in our main application. And that's in the main JavaScript file. Cool. After we have that, probably we need to install the router too. Well, before we install the router, let's actually do some kind of cleanup. Let's see how everything goes. So my application view, I'm going to put my template here. And let's do h1 loader. We delete the hello world. We don't need it. We don't need the logo either. That should be enough. Let me open the terminal. The other one, npm dev. Hello there. Perfect. Now let's install the router. We need to install version 4. Remember, we're using Vue 3 at the moment that we're recording this video. Perfect. After we have that, what we need to be doing is to create a router.js. So let's create in the source directory router JavaScript. From here, we're going to import something from your router, and we're going to pretty much import create router and create web history. We can use hash history or web history. I will keep it with web history. Web history remove the pound on the title, so it's pretty cool. You need an extra configuration for deployment, but I believe it looks a lot clearer. So we need those two for now. We need to create a couple of views. So let's create a new view. This one's going to be in the views folder called home.view. Let's do the template, home, and let's create a second one. Let's call this search or details, and let's call detail dot view. This is going to be the details. That means that here we're going to have like the search elements, and the details will be like the details for one particular GIF that we're going to be looking at, right? So we have those two pages right there. So we can go to a router, we can import, let's say home from views home, and import details from views details. Okay, now we do our routes. It's going to be an array of objects, and we have two different routes. One is going to be the main one. This we're going to use the component home that we already imported. The second one, the path will be, let's call this detail. No. Let's call this ID, because we're going to send like an ID in the parameter, and I will show you that a little bit later. So let's call this ID for now, and let's do the component details. Then we do export counts router, and my router is going to be a create router that we already imported, and this need to send an object. We need to send the history. What type of history is the create web history that we already imported, and we need to send the routes. It's route, but we have the same name. We can keep it like that. So we have router done. Now we need pretty much go to the main JavaScript and import the router. So let's go to the main. And let's import the just before this one. Let's do something like this. Application. And let's put here import router from router. And we can just create app use router mount application. This should work. Probably not the best convention, but should be fine for now. That means we don't see anything yet. Why? Didn't like it. We have an issue here. Okay, let's do separate this just in case. Application is going to be create app, and then we do application use router, and then we use application mount. We use in operation for path and define it. So let's see the routes. Let me check my notes. Something is missing here. Yes, about on the view in particular. Yes. Export router create router. Oh yeah, this is a function. There you go. It was a single mistake. We need to be really careful about this. So the create web history is a function that didn't working, but now that I put it there, we can see it's working. Showing my hello there. Now I need to actually put my details on my home page. For that, we go to application view, and after this, let's do our router view, and we can soft close it. We'll have the home, and let's create a new component. Navbar, let's call this. Oh, header. Let's do a router link to here. Let's call this home, and let's do another router link to. For now, let's send it to ID, and let's call details. Right, this will change later. So let's have those one right there. Let's go to the application.view and let's just import my header. So if I go to home, details, the navigation is working. It's not pretty because we're not doing changes yet, but we can see that the styling is being applied and the navigation is working the way it's supposed to. Cool. So now that we have that, let's put our header to be a little more static. So I will not use actually a details link. What I want to do when I want to have like a title, a search input, and then on the information, the only things that I want to show several GIFs there. And when you click one, that one will send you to the details of that particular one. So it's the only thing. That means that the only link that we want to have here in the header will be the home one. And that should be enough. So let's delete this one. We'll delete it. Let's comment this out for now. Let's go to home. There you go. Let's have everything wrapped in. Let's delete this. Better. And we have a router link here. And I'm putting this because I want this to be like in the middle, right? So this is going to be my router link to home. And let's call this something like, I don't know. Dude, where is my cave? Right? And this is actually a link. When you click it, you cannot see it, but it's sending me to So now that we have something like this, we can just do a couple of classes on the parent. Let's do a padding y of 6. Oops. Of course, we need to learn how to do this. Sorry. So let's do background, gray. If you don't see auto completion like myself, let me just close it. I cancel this. I open again and run it npm run that. My server restarter. Let's see if it actually works. Okay, and let's do background. There you go. Now have my to completion working. Let's go. Ray 800. And let's do them to flex and justify center. So I have my title right there. Now let's make the title looks pretty. So here let's put class and let's add. And this one going to be really cool class that I found on the Darwin website. Let's actually create background clip text. Cool. Then after that, my font is going to be bold. Tracking widest. Yeah, perfect. Let's make the text bigger. My text is going to be transparent, but background, because we have background clip text, the background will stick on the text itself. So that means if I do background, I don't know, red 300, you see that my text is there. That means that we can apply the really cool transition. So we can do a background gradient to right from green. Let's do green 400 to blue 500. There you go. So now we have that little effects there. That's pretty neat. What is pretty cool this is actually you can have, let me copy this and let me send it to the parent instead of doing background gray. You see that background is like applied to everything, so you can do that gradient, pretty neat. But if you use background clip text, you can use that kind of background for the text only sections too. And I feel it looks well nice somehow. So we have the header, pretty neat. Cool. This is what we needed. Now I need to work on my search bar. So my search bar is going to be a component that will be in my home view. So my home view should have a search. Let's put it here and let's still have it home. Let's import that search. Right, and here let's just do a template. Okay, yes, it's importing the search. Perfect. So this is going to be a little more simpler. It's going to be a simple input. But let's go to, before we continue, let me just go here and let's do a class background. What color should be fine? Let's do something really dark here. Grade 700. Oops. In my body, that means that everything is a little dark like that. Yeah, I like it. So we can actually go here in the search and we can apply some good styling. So we need to have an input, right? And we need to make this input look pretty somehow. So we don't have the name, it will have placeholder. And the placeholder will be actually, I don't know, something like, I'm looking for, right? Yeah, we have that one right there. We can get rid of the ID. So let's add the classes here. And let's make this input to look a little more decent. So let's make this a container. That means it's free of the width. And we should hire as a block because by default it's inline. And we hire as a block, we can do a MX auto, not to be centered. And just in case I added the width full in there. I don't know why I put the width full there, probably don't need it. Let's see if we can get rid of that. So let's do a rounded. Rounded. Boom. So we had those right there, perfect. Let's do a margin top of 8. Yeah, I like it. Let's make the text a little bit bigger. Yes. Let's do a padding J of 2. This should be 1J. So we had a little extra space in there. Probably could add a padding 2 to everything. Yeah, it looks a little bit better. So we have the size in there. What else we can do? Oh, yeah, online. You look at online that the browser put by default, let's remove that. It's actually online none. Perfect, but it's not a good option to have nothing there for ADA compliance. We need to notify the user that when it's selected, it has some kind of marking or something there. So let's do a focus. When it's focus, let's do a ring, or that looks pretty. You see now it's there, and but it's using the border, and I like it. But let's change that color a little bit so we can do the ring. It's going to be ring 500. Yeah, I like it. And probably we can use a little bit of opacity in that ring. Focus, ring, opacity. 50 should be enough. Yeah, pretty good. A little bit transparency there. I like it. The only thing that we can do, probably let's put the text on the center. Let's text to Excel and let's do text center. Of course, the space. Yeah. So this is going to be our template, and by default, when you get in, it's going to put like a bunch of text or stuff in there. And when we select it, we should go to the details of that particular page. So let's continue. What else we need to do? And the next step is going to be the layout that we need to have. So let's work in that layout. So let's go to the home page. So after we have the search, we need to have some kind of layout right here. Let's call this in a div. And this div will have a bunch of divs inside. So let's put another div here. Class, let's do background white. Right. Let's do, I don't know, 15? No. 48? Yeah, I can do 48. Height 48. Yeah, to have there. And let's actually change this to pink 300 just to remember that it's some kind of placeholder. Yeah, and let's do a before. Going to be and in, I don't know, 15. And my key is going to be end. Okay, I have 15 line bears. So now that I have that, okay, let me spice it up the way they're supposed to. Let's have a little margin just to have the margin there. Margin 1. We have one shows the squares. And one on top of the other because those div elements are blocks by default. So let's spice it out in the parent component. So let's go to the class here. And let's do area separation for the top, right? The same one that this one has, so it's have some kind of consistency. Let's do container through MX auto. Let's make this a grid. Cool. So making this a grid, I can get rid of this margin. I don't need it anymore. Using the grid, and this everything came in Tailwind too. So we can do a gap 6 by default, right? That's pretty neat. And as the grid holds 1. Yeah, I like it. And justify item center. Perfect. I like this. Well, actually, probably we need to have, I don't know, calls for something like this, right? You can see it's actually working the way it's supposed to. Let's make this a little smaller. Set 48 to 24. There we go. So we can have some kind of gap there. Maybe bigger, yeah. Maybe 55 item center. Yeah, that will work. But let's do grid column 4 when we are actually on. Let's do 1 because let's do responsiveness. So when we are in a cell phone, we should see like one screen there. In a bigger screen, medium sizing, let's do grid calls 2. When we do a larger sizing, let's do grid calls 3 until just let's do an extra large showing the big screens. Let's do grid calls 4. So that means that we have 4, 3, 2, 1, depending on the sizing. We can see that actually get applied there. Right? Pretty neat. So we have the layout. We have this information here. So I believe now what I need to do is every one of those should be a link. So this instead of being a div element for the default should be a router link, right? We're going to be sending this to, and let's have this bracket like this. Let's have this one right here, and let's send to end. That means if I don't know if this actually works or not. Probably need to put this in a single bracket inside. Or it needs to be dynamic. Didn't like it. Can I send it to end directly? Oh, we have an issue. I just refresh it and see the issue. Let's go to the console. Um, remove this tool from here and let's refresh. It's complaining. What is complaining? In operation in the path is undefined. We fixed that, no? Oh, I didn't like it to be a router link. Let me change this to div again. Yeah, everything's working. So why didn't like it to be a router link? Two. Um, no, just like this. In theory, this should work. I don't know what's happening. Battery is not complaining. So let's actually send this to details. We need to have a content. Oh, this is not close. Look at this. Yeah, that was the issue. This router link is open over here, well, but not close over here. Okay. So that means if I refresh, it should be fine. And we go to the details page. Perfect. If I click in my title, that sends me to home. Cool. Now let's actually send a little more tricky. So let's do text interpolation and I will send this to n. I mean that it send me to oh, of course. This is the one. So it will send to oh, this need to be dynamic, of course. Because I'm assigning a dynamic value. This is sent to 1. This will be sent to 2. This should be 5. So that's going to be like the ID of the element that we're clicking in. So the things that I want to do there, after I click that router link, let's go to the router itself and let's change something. And that will be pretty cool. So the things that we're going to change the router is that we're going to be sending this as a parameter. And that parameter will be ID. That means that we can request that inside the element. So that means we go to details. We can say something like details of IP, and we can send something, and let's do and I need to be a little more technical here. So let's do a setup, my script, import something from view router, and we need to import use route, I think. and then let's do const ID equal going to be use route arms ID, and we send that ID right here. So when we click it, details ID number 1, details ID number 6, because that's going to be sent over here. If we send an ID of hello, details of ID hello. So with this use route, we can actually read the parameter ID, and we know that it's a parameter ID because it's the way that we call it right here with this column. So we're telling that this parameter needs to be sent the element, and now we have a dynamic looking element. Pretty neat, and I believe that should be enough for the layout for now. Well, yeah, details probably can do a lot better, right? But actually, let's do something with details there. So let me go to details. So we can see that, let's do what we can do. Let's do a div. I like to wrap everything divs always. And let's do a h1 because it's going to be the title. Let's call this details of ID, right? And then we have some kind of image. Well, for now, let's call it like a div. And this div could be actually so close in div, we don't need that much. And we have the class of background pink 500. Let's do 64 h 64. Ooh, didn't like it. Oh, okay, I need to close the class. Yeah. And we are going to be calling something another text, and we can send that after that. We can do like a paragraph or whatever. Other details here. That's pretty much the layout. So that means that for the layout, let's do a margin. Of course, this needs to be a class. And let's do a margin top of 8. And let's do this to be a quick element. Justify item center, it's faster. And let's do a space y04. So that's the price. So that's going to be the details of the element. So we click it and we see we would see some kind of title. This one here, right there, that one right there. Or we can do something with it. Let's change it to text white. What I'm doing here? All this class should be inside the paragraph. There you go. Well, let's do text gray 200. Yeah, better. And let's make this, I don't know, what we can do. Let's do text Excel. Yeah. Contain text gray 200. Yeah, something like this, right? And probably we can change this to one light. And something like this could work. Like the title, the image, and the details here. And then we can look something like this. Perfect. Yeah. So we have the layout ready. Now after we have the layout ready, now we need to start sending information. The way that we used it before, we create like a fake database, a JSON file, and we push a bunch of stuff in there and then we call it, right? which is mostly for the to-do app. In this case, as I mentioned before, I want to use a REST API. And one of the simplest ones that I found, and it's actually really neat, is the one for gifting. This is a service that gives you like a bunch of gifts, and it's free to use. And it's pretty. It has some limitations there, but I believe we are not going to meet those limitations for development purposes. So let me make the site bigger. So we need to go to developer.giphy.com. We click to get started. We need to log in. If you don't have an account, it will ask you to create one. Right, for now, you can log in with those resources or not, or in my case, I already have my account there. I just click login. And after login, you go to create an application. You go to the API section. This is a little more advanced. It gives you a bunch of stuff, but it's outside the scope of this course. So we're going to get this one to have access to the information. Next step, you put the name, description, and you create an app. And after that app is created, I just call it where is the GIF. You give you an IP key, and that IP key is the one that we'll be using for making the calls. So this was for authentication purposes. So how this actually works? Let me show you how to read the document. So let's go to the documents and let's go to the API section. So we need to create an application because we need to have that key, API key. And that API key will have a limit, 50 reads per hour, 100 search API calls per day. Pretty much. So for one day it should be enough. So we have the training endpoint, search endpoint. We have a bunch of best practices there. We are not using any outside this scope. And if you're using the application for more production ready, you need to upgrade the keys in there. Somehow, that's it. But for now, we don't need it. So the endpoints are like the network sources that we need to be sending, calling. So they have the GIF one for the sticker. We are not going to be using the sticker, to the GIF section, and everything needs to go pretty much to this network endpoint. And then the resources are the ones that are here on the right. We're going to be using two: the trending when we don't have anything to show, and the search one for when we're looking for something specific. Those is going to be get request. I don't know, we'll say it over here. Yeah. Let me check. If so these are pretty much, it doesn't say that it's a web, but it's actually a get request. So for that get request, you need to send some, you can send those parameters. Parameters are the things that are after the question mark on the right. And one of those parameters need to be the IP key, and it's the only one that is required. The rest is optional. So that means that we are not going to use it right now. We don't need it. So let's just send that the string. Perfect. And successful response. We have a JSON object with a data, pagination, and meta information. And the data will be the GIF object in an array. And the GIF objects have like a bunch of stuff. We have the type, IDs, slug, URL, video URL. Like we have a bunch of stuff in there. So one of the things that we're going to be using, the rating, probably. Let's put like the text going to be the rating to see how this actually is. We have a title, I believe. Yes. So like happy dancing GIF, so we're going to use the title one. And for the actual image, we're going to be using a bunch of those. So we're going to be using so here in the image, let's go to the image object. It's a sub object. We have the fixed weight and the different properties. So let's use the Let me see in my notes which one I use it. Okay, there is a. I don't like the fixed way because you need like a specific sizing. But if you go down, you can see that is downsized one. Probably this is the one that we need to use. And there's one called just downsized like this, yes. So in the image downsized, there's a URL, and there's the one that we're going to be putting as a endpoint, like an image either. And these are the maximum width and height, right? But yes, let's use this one for the search bar. And when we actually explain the details for this particular image, we're going to show the original object. And we're going to use it for the original. This is going to be the WebP part. I don't remember. Probably. Let me check my notes really quick again. Oh no, just original, give you the object directly and we can use that one directly. But yes, the WebP should be enough not to show it. And this is like the high quality version of that particular game. And it's really simple. So now that we have that, we need to use Axios for MPI call. Well, let me actually look for Axios right here. There you go. Oops. Axios JavaScript. It's a promise-based HTTP client for browser and Node.js. So we just need to install it, and we just need to use it. It's actually pretty simple. It doesn't get that complication. You actually get, we have a request. You can have the parameter right here in the URL, or we can send it as a parameter object like this one. That's pretty much what we need. One of the cool things about this is the create object. So you can create an instance of that Axios with a default. So we have the base URL, and we can have that parameters in there, and pretty much the one that we're going to be using. So it sounds a little bit complicated, but it's actually not. So let's get started. So let me just go back here and there. Let's do npm install Axios. And now inside my source directory, I will create a new file. And I like to call this helpers folder, and they call the use git. And use git will be good enough. So from here, what we're going to be using, we're going to import ref from view, right? And we're going to import Axios from Axios. So there is a couple of things that we need to do. We need to bind this element to something, right? So let's call this export from search item equal a reference of an empty null object. This is going to want them to be binded to this. And let's actually do export from. Yeah, that should be enough. And let's create the API, the instance. Oops, let's go to create the instance. Right, something like this. But instead of the base URL, on this one, we know that this is going to be our base URL. And then we just call the different resources depending the needs, right? And let's call this, we call it install, let's call this API, right? And we don't need to export it because it's going to be used locally very much. And there are different methods to use decomposition, but let's actually create a couple of things. Let me create a couple of objects, export, cons, gifs in plural. Yeah, probably this is not the best method, but it's simpler to explain. It's going to be an empty array and export cons a single gif when we're doing like a specific one gif. It's a reference of nothingness for that, right? Cool. So let's create the first. So let's do export cons get gifs plural, and this is going to be an asynchronous function without parameters that need to be doing something. So what we need to do, and when we're working with asynchronous, it's good to have like a try catch. That way we catch an error, we can do a console log error just to see if something went wrong. But if not, let's do response equal, and here is going to be tricky. Let's check if a search item value exists. It's going to be doing something. If not, it's going to be doing something else, right? So if the text value exists, we're going to call await. Response is going to be awaiting my API API. And let's look for the search endpoint. We can complete this search. Let me make this a little bit clearer. So URL or resources. Resource is going to be search, or it's going to be trending, depending if the search item value exists, right? Something like that, and then we can do response equal URL. Sorry, wait. API calling my resource. And we need to resource it. There you go. I need to call my resource, of course. That should be it for now. Of course, we were looking for something. We need to send a string, right? Call the queue, and as a new parameter. Oh, I'm forgetting this parameter. I will go there in a minute. So actually go to call. We know that gives.value is going to be equal my response. Axios give me a data element with the body, but something extra that we learned through here is that they send no extra data, so we need to actually response data. Give it to the give value. So now my gifs have everything that came from my API. Pretty much. This is not working yet because if I make this call, I'm not sending my parameter API key. So in order to send it, I was forgetting to put it just right here. Params, and it's going to be an object, and it's actually my API key, and I need to send it something, and I will talk about put it keys right here, but later in this matter. Go to developer. Let me just go to my create app. I use console. I have it right here. I copy that IP there. Cool. And that should be enough. So we can actually go to my home view. Let's do my script. And we're using the sugar code setup. I'm going to import from helpers use give. I'm going to get my get from use give. We're going to import the get gives, right? What else I can do? And let me actually import my. So I want to call this function anytime that I get back here, right? So how we call it? Something that you have is different hooks in the period. So if I do something like this, let me show you from view. What I want to do is something when view is getting loaded and when it's getting unmounted, I can actually call this function and do something about it, right? So unmounted, I want to use unmounted. Just I want to do something, and this is going to have a really callback here, and I want just to call my getGive function. So whenever we call get mounted, this will get called, right? And of course, I need to import my GIF from here and get my GIF. So we call this. Let me try to inspect this. Let's see if it's actually working the way that it's supposed to. Yeah, everything is there. If I refresh, I don't see anything complaining there. Routing is fine. So something really cool here is we can actually go to here to come. I have my getGive function, and my GIF is actually already an array of 50 elements. Cool. That means it's working the way it's supposed to. If I open it, every element have an ID, have a title, there you go, have an image object, and this image object have the downsized one, that is the one that we're going to be using, and have the original one right there. So pretty neat. So the call is actually making and it's getting saving the GIF. Why it didn't save it? Because I'm calling this function when this gets mounted. If I get back to here, this is going to go and check my resources. By default, this one doesn't exist. This one doesn't have anything. That means that is called my resource is going to be trending, right? And then you just call that trending resources. That is the call that we're getting. So let's put this data right here instead of those pink boxes. So now that we have GIF, we can actually change this. So we can do for GIF in GIFs in plural. And now my key, I can use every GIF have an ID. So I can do my key going to be a GIF.id. And I need to send everybody to my GIF.id. If I save this, now it's supposed to have 50 boxes. Cool. Inside here, let's have an image dash, and the source is going to be, because it's going to be inside the before, it's going to be mapped out, and we need to call the image endpoint. That means it's going to be my GIF dot image dot something, right? I'm going to call it, and it's image in plural. We call the downsized property and the URL. So we called it downsized dot URL. And we have dot GIFs there. started loading. So that means that we can get back to where we have those pink elements. We don't need those anymore. So we don't need these classes. And I have something like this. All those GIFs are getting loaded. Pretty neat, right? Of course, if I make this bigger, it's responsive. You can see there are the 3, 4, 2, 1 layout, depending the sizing. Pretty neat. So we all almost done. And I need to be careful because sometimes it's not appropriate to show like in a video, right? Sorry for that. People once in a while upload GIFs that are more adult content there. So for now it looks like we have Lucky. So pretty. So we have most of this. If I'm ready, if I close this, yeah, if I click one and I can go to that particular ID and I get the detail for that particular ID, it should be enough. So now let's make this work, right? The input. When we put something, I need to search for those. I need to send it there. So the first thing that we need to use is I need to import. I'm going to search item. That means that my actually not here. I need to go to the search section where we have that input, right? We go to the script and it came a lot. A script setup. I'm going to use to import something from helpers with GIF. We need to import my search item. And this will have a view model for search item. So I want to trigger whenever this change. I want to trigger making the call. So we know that we are actually using the call with the use GIF. So we could call the get GIF in plural, and we can do when this change, we call get GIF. As simple as that. So that means we call hello. For now, we fail. So we saw that get empty, right? Let's go to inspect. Let's go to console, and we will see why we have an issue there. When it's empty and working, when we put something, it's just broke. Why it broke, and it's difficult to identify what is happening here. We can actually see it. Well, we will see it right here, right away. What is in the use GIF when we call in the response and we're looking for a search item, we go to document API endpoint search. We need to send another parameter. So we can actually do something like this. We can send an object, and then going to be param, and we're going to add this parameter to be q, and q is going to be search item.value. That's it. So if we don't have anything, get loaded, we put hello. We have the hello there. Nice. And I will keep it like this. I'll put another one like nice. We are looking for nice. But we get empty and we click enter. We just get the trending one, the ones that are right there in the application. So we have the search functionality working. And the cool thing is we can send these parameters whenever we're doing actually the trending, because trending doesn't care, so it doesn't matter whether you send it or not. They just for simplify the sender response. But we change the resources to search, and we just go to the search item value that get loaded whenever we change the value of this input box. That's why we actually send the dot call to be there. It's actually really simple and very cool the way to do see it like this. So the last one that I want is whenever I got here, I have a particular ID, right? And I want to load only that particular. So we can have it two things. We can actually send like a prop. We did that in the past, or we can make like some kind of API call. And let's actually use that one. So we go back here. Random endpoint, no. Actual register endpoint. Oh, here's where it says get, right? Random ID. Get a GIF by ID. So you call GIF, and with the GIF ID, you will call the GIF object in singular. So this is what I want to do. That means that we need to call a second function, and this second function is going to be how to get only one GIF. So let's get export cons get GIF, and let's call this singular, this GIF in plural, just to get only one. There's going to be a synchronous function that requires an ID. That requires an ID, and that ID is going to be sent in our call. So remember, we need to send it right here. So that's going to be very simple. Of course, it's another call. That means that we need to try it. In a try catch, if we had an error, we do console log error, and we do cons response equal await API get me my ID, right? This is just the ID. The result is going to be the ID. And we're sending the parameter API by default, right? So everything, yeah. And then my GIF in singular value is going to be response data. So this element actually give me all the body object in a data element, but Giphy send me everything in a data element. So you can see it right here. That's why we call it like that. So let's do it this way, and that should be enough. That means that in our details, we can actually go and we use a route, yes, and we have the routing ID, cons ID equal route ID, yeah, that works. And then let's actually put on mounted. Actually, we need to import that. Import mounted from view. So whenever this get mounted or get loaded somehow, actually, you know what? Let's do it somewhere else. Let's actually not call it view. Let's actually call it from the router. So we can do something really cool in the router itself. We can see that for this path, we can protect it somehow, do something about it. So we can actually, and we can do before, I believe it's called before enter. And before enter is a function that will be executed before we go here. So one of the things that we can use before enter to this endpoint is to do an extra validation. We saw in the past when we have the login, we have like a before every route just to verify it need to go there or set it to protect it, right? But this one actually really called it to and from to is going and from where it's coming, right? So let me create another function here. Export calls clean GIF. And it's going to be as simple as a function that's going to be GIF dot value equal to none. Boom. Something like that, right? So clean GIF is pretty much giving that empty. So here we can actually go right here and let's do import from helpers right there. Oops. Helpers. Use GIF. And let's call the clean GIF and get GIF in singular, not the plural. So before we enter, we just need to clean the GIF, right? You just to delete the one that will get loaded, and then execute get GIF, and we need to send it to params ID element there, and then we return true. That means that we can proceed or go into the page. So here what we're doing is before actually loading the page and have that flickering, we are deleting the GIF element and we just get a new one right away from the API. That's it, right? And then after we getting that from the API, we just load the page. So it's pretty much what we're doing, something like that. If we go to details, that means that we don't need to use this anymore. And we just can import GIF from our helper. Helpers, use GIF. Just import the helper from the use GIF will allow us. And the router is the one to actually will making the call. And that way we will get to worry much about this. So we know that the title should be as simple as, and let's put everything here and let's call GIF.title. We can go rid of this class and we can have an image here. And this is going to be dynamic, assign it. And it's going to be my GIF dot image dot original dot my the WebP version. That's like the main one, and we saw that object before. To be compiled, let's have the alt to be just my GIF dot title there, and that should be enough. There you go. We have the title, came from the API, and we have the image in high quality. So let's get one that is a little bit smaller, and let's see if it actually came like a really big. Okay, this is gonna be epic. Yeah, because it is a little bit bigger. Ooh. Something happened here. Let's refresh. Here, here. Ooh, interesting. Somehow the router is complaining here. And it's really Let's see what we have in this spec. Go to the view section. So this router link on my home. That's my home, my router view. This is supposed to be empty. Why is not? Because in my router link there, and my router view is right here, right? With different router links. So when I click one, my details there. If I get back to here, somehow my details stay it. Interesting. I can see that the review just have these ones there. Hmm. That's a really interesting thing that is actually happening. I'm not sure why. How can we fix it? Let me verify that. With image original web page. Yeah, I think it's type of that. Well, let me just go back to one of the details. Let me change these other details here. We say that we will do the rating, right? So let's go rating. Okay, rating. Could be the browser that I'm using right now. Where is the browser? The other one that I open. There you go. Yes, to go here. Rating. If I remove this, save it. Ooh. npm font depth. Okay. Something happened with my environment. I'm making changes, not getting reflected. Let's view details, push it. It's not getting pushed until I click it again. You can see that. So if I change this to rating, yeah, something is broken here. We have the gift.rating element, and that came from the object itself. Can have rating G. Perfect. Most of them should be like that. Right? So probably something we can do if this gift element doesn't exist, don't show anything. So let's do be if there is a gift. Right? Look at that. Simple be if statement, clean it up. So because we are entering here, we are cleaning the GIF element. Yeah, actually just fix it. So we're not showing the information until the GIF gets loaded, pretty much. So something that we can do here, we can have another div. This is going to be a builds, right? And we just can put the word loading. That means we click this one, you say loading, boom. Loading, boom. There you go. I like that. I like that a lot. Of course, we can make the loading to be class, to be text grade 200, text to Excel, MX Auto probably. It's going to be a block element. Text auto and let's do margin top of 8. This one now let's do text center. Loading. There you go. We have the loading really quick, as you can see it. Let's open another one. And then the image. One that I never opened, like this one. Oh, depending the internet. And probably we can actually go to input network throwing. Let's put this as a regular Q3G slower connection. And we can see that loading state a little bit better in theory. There you go. Call in. Wow, that's a really big image. Wow. Controlling. Let me refresh it. So this little image is this one from here. Right. This is WebP section. It's 400 kilobytes. So we can see that in a 3G it's actually a bit low. In 4G it's a little bit faster probably. Let's go here, let's go to his one, loading. Wait for a couple of seconds, in theory. Didn't like the throwing, need to remove it. Yeah, well, probably trolling, you saw it. It makes connections lower, but we can actually hit that loading state to be there. Something really cool about this if statement that will help us is something that doesn't exist. It will stay there, right? And we will never know. Probably we need to handle this a little bit better, but it's going to, because the GIF element doesn't exist, it will always show the BLs. And we can handle different states. Probably checking the code for this one, but for now, at least outside the scope. What I want to show you is how to use an API, how we call it, and how we implement it. We can actually look for something. Hello. Let's put a Tom Hanks meme over there. There we go. And we can actually insert it. So for now, this code is going to be shared. Something actually before we finish. Sorry, I really probably will record over an hour now, but this is really really important. Before we finish and before we put it somewhere or code, let's actually do a git init, right? Git, and before we add it, before we do something, we did something that is not good, and that's going to be right here in the use case. So this it get public when we use the API. If we go to the inspect element, we go to the network console, right? And let's refresh this page. We can see that we call the API the Giphy, and we have the API key right here. We can see it, right? It's because JavaScript is rendered on the browser, and everything is there. But for source code purposes, for version controlling, we cannot be storing passwords, right? So before, I just initialized it, but I didn't add it yet. So before we proceed with that, we just need to create our env file, right? So let's do code.env, and here let's go to bit.js env, and it's bit. So we can have env files, and if we have something like this, it works. So let me do bit API key equal that API key from here, right? We save it. In our gitignore, we don't have a gitignore file here. We have it. We should have it. Let's add the .env. That env file, it should not be tracked. Last thing that we need to do, we need to delete this, and we just need to call it with the process. Actually, it should be import meta env, import bit expose env variables, import meta env. Okay. Bitsum key will be exposed as an import meta bitsum key, and your client self-hosting password will not. Perfect. So that means that we call this one to be import.meta.env.byte API key. So with that, we should be enabled just to go and get the bit API key that we have here and call it. Let's see if it actually works. Let's restart the server just in case. Let's go here. And this is still working. I guess process the way that it's supposed to. Nice. That means we have everything done. Cool. So now we have the env files to be not be tracked, and we save the API key here. That way, in our source code, that one, is not going to be exposed. That's really important. So now I can do git add everything, git commit, probably it should be doing too. If finder app, and if before I click enter, this is -m for message. And we will just create, before create, if finder, it's going to be public. Yes, it will create my GitHub. Perfect. And then I can do git push origin master. Perfect. We call it what? Viewfinder. There you go. It's there, and we go to the source, helpers, use GIF. That key is not getting exposed. So hope that you like it. You will have access to the source code to actually see it and try to check a little bit how the calls are made. This was a really, well, we'll say a quick example, but we have over an hour and a half probably already recorded. But it's a really good example how to call a third-party API. But in our next video, we're going to learn how to create those API ourselves in Node.js and how we can have our own information. Later, probably we can use something, I don't know, like Firebase, like saving data to a database itself. Well, we will see how things are going. So for now, hope that you like it. Any question or doubt, don't hesitate to reach me. Happy coding, everybody.